Hi, welcome to Gene Rants. I'm Gene, Chief Ranter and Bottle Washer. And today we're going back to Ukraine and Russia, the Ukraine-Russia war. This was the subject of yesterday's vlog. And if you watch that vlog, and if you haven't, you should probably go back and watch it because I'm not going to repeat the whole vlog and it'll give you a better idea what I'm talking about now. But basically, I expressed skepticism about the possibility of, well, as Trump would say, making a deal. That's his whole philosophy: make a deal, making a deal that will be fair and will end the war. Fair is what I mean. I mean fair to Ukraine. I have no interest in being fair to Russia, and Russia has no interest in being fair to Ukraine. I listed several bullet points that were the barriers to any reasonable outcome and of that conflict that Putin started. Now, by coincidence, and this is a reason why I thought of taking that whole vlog down because it's a strange coincidence, or one of those things that happens in life, I guess. Just as I was uploading that video, the video was about halfway uploaded. The announcement was made, the one we all know, that Putin, the Trump administration, reported that Putin has agreed to a bilateral meeting between him and Zelensky. So I thought of taking it down and say, well, that changes everything. We'll have to see how that turns out. But it's an agreement to talk, and we're still talking about the prospects of a deal. And the more I thought about it, I stand by what I said in that vlog, that I'm skeptical, and I hope to be wrong because of those bullet points that are still in place. That's number one. But number two, it's an agreement. Well, it's an agreement to meet. When will this meeting happen? That's number one. It's going to take. I thought the idea was, for what I was hoping for or expecting, was Trump would immediately, when they met in Alaska, say, we need a ceasefire. Are you going to cease fire right now? And because he said he would know within 2 minutes whether there was any possibility of a deal. And that Putin would say no, and that Trump, just as Reagan did, a real strong president, not someone who kind of, I don't want to say all hat and no cattle, as the Texas saying goes, but we'll say, I'm starting to think Trump is about 90%, maybe 95% hat and 5% actual cattle. I don't want to get off on a track right now why I believe that, but definitely in the case, it's an agreement to talk. It's going to take, as I understand, well, if you're going to talk, just get together, set the meeting and talk. This meeting that happened in Alaska, it took, what, days? It took a week, about a week to arrange. And now they're talking about weeks, plural, of negotiations or something to set up this bilateral meeting. Why? You can be right away. While this is all being talked about, just talk about or negotiated, the fighting goes on. The fighting goes on. And if a deal were to be reached, what happens then? Putin gets some land. Trump keeps using this term land swaps. Well, to me, a land swap means that Russia gets some of Ukraine and Ukraine gets some of Russia. But this land swap, it's Ukraine swapping their own land. And Putin's position right now is he wants Donetsk, which, as I said yesterday, Ukraine's not going to give that up. They'd be stupid to do that. The basic reason is that that's where the line is, in Donetsk. Russia, or Donbass, is part of that area, and that's the main place, Donbass. But Russia has part of it, but not all of it. That's where the defensive lines are. That's where if there was a deal, maybe an armistice line at that point where they are. But if Ukraine were to get give up the whole Donbass. It's all flat land from there to Kyiv, and that's it's the end of Ukraine, really, as an independent country. And the main point is that that area where Trump is saying land swaps, and Putin is saying, I want everything that I have so far plus the rest of Donbass. I want land that I have not taken. I want Ukraine just to give it, and they want other things that, well, basically a surrender, basically a surrender. Now, what has happened since this announcement that everybody, I see all these talking heads are just cheering this, at least the ones on the MAGA crowd, the conservative media. I mean, I almost this could be a separate vlog. I am really getting a little sick and tired. Even though I voted for Trump, he's not an angel. He's not perfect. And this universal sycophancy to Trump, that everything he does is wonderful. They just jump in to defend everything he does. And there's a lot of things that he does that are not. And there will be, like on tariffs, I'll probably talk about that in a future vlog. But the problem that I'm seeing is that there is already, well, here's this, let me put, this just came out. This is after this agreement that everybody's talking about, and it's an agreement not of a ceasefire, not an agreement to end the war, just an agreement for Zelensky and Putin to meet, and that leaves totally open. What are they going to say at this meeting? I don't see what kind of compromise can there possibly be. And since this just came out this morning, the day before you're seeing this, so it's the day after all this announcement everybody's talking about. And I'll just put up the headline. I'm not linking to the actual article because it's behind a paywall, so I don't want you to have to pay a subscription in this case. But what I am doing is I'm gonna, well, let me just put it up. All right, so what I was getting at is, you see at the top of the headline, there is the website. If you want to go there, the URL, you can go there and look at it, but I'm not putting a link in there. Anyways, the headline is right there. Russia says excluding Moscow from security talks is road to nowhere. The person who said that is the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. And what he's talking about is this. He says road to nowhere. Right now, as I speak, or the day that I'm speaking, but I think it's even as I speak, the NATO countries, the members of the NATO countries are meeting to discuss security guarantees. What Zelensky rightfully wants, security guarantees. And I would just, a little aside here, Ukraine was given security, I guess I should put that in quotes, security guarantees when Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. Ukraine had nuclear weapons, and they gave them up on an assurance, a promise that we, the West, would have Ukraine's back if Russia ever invaded Ukraine. Well, we see how that turned out. Now we're talking about more talk about security guarantees. Obviously, these are going to have to be a lot more substantive than the mere promise that Zelensky got. The first, or not Zelensky, Ukraine, Poroshenko was the president then at that time, I believe. I could be wrong, but whoever it was, that's what happened. So you're talking about something more substantial, and all the members of NATO, Poland and well, now it includes Finland, right? All the members, Hungary, all the members, the NATO members, are all meeting to discuss the security guarantees. And what this headline is saying, that if you exclude Russia, then it's a road to nowhere. I mean, that what NATO is saying, or these countries, NATO countries are saying, is that they are going to agree on whatever these security guarantees would be, or that they want to propose, and then propose to Russia, and then get a response, and then negotiate, yada, 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 talk. But this foreign minister is saying, if you read that article, Russia, according to the foreign minister Lavrov, Russia has to be at that table with the NATO countries debating what the security guarantees would be, that they are not going to accept NATO just deciding, agreeing on security guarantees and then negotiating with Russia and getting Russia's position. Lavrov is saying that Russia has to be at the table with the NATO countries and debate and decide together decide on what the security guarantees would be. That's number one. Number two, there's been talk, well, we're not going to put boots on the ground there. We're not going to promise to put, we're just not going to. We might promise air support. I think there's talk about that. But these, the European countries, European Union, whoever, they are talking about putting European troops in Ukraine so that you have a substantive guarantee, or at least more substantive security guarantee. You have actual troops on the ground, similar, I would imagine, to what we have in South Korea. The border between South Korea and North Korea, we have like 38,000, I believe, American troops there. They are a tripwire that if North Korea were to come over the border, attack South Korea, they would have to come through us and an attack. Obviously, 38,000 American soldiers are not going to stop a mass assault by North Korea, but it would be they would be a hair trigger that would bring all of us, mess with some of us, you mess with all of us. That's a situation apparently that Europe is talking about in Ukraine, wherever this dividing line turns out in this so-called land swap. But Russia is saying that they will not accept any troops from any NATO member country. So what are we talking about? Troops from, I don't know, India or from Pakistan or something like that. It's nonsense. So if Russia is not going to accept, essentially, for all practical purposes, no physical presence of troops in Ukraine, then we're back to where we were when Ukraine signed, when those original assurances that prompted them to give up their nukes. And as I said, that's how that all turned out. And then what happens if there's an agreement? Then supposedly any sanctions that were on Russia would come off. The sanctions would come off. Russia could sell all the oil it wants at the market rate and get the money comes flowing in, and Russia can build up their military and just take all the time that they want. And they probably would take 3.5 years. I mean, we keep this Donald Trump. They would, though, and Putin flattered Trump in Alaska and said, yes, if you were president, the war would not have happened. So whether you believe that or not, I mean, obviously it didn't happen while he was president, but Trump will not be president after noon on January 20th, 2029, right? So then what happens then? Then Putin can just sit there and wait. I mean, he has a long view, and he can wait till Trump is gone, and we'll see what happens after that. I predicted, as I've said in the past, that J.D. Vance is most likely the next president, and I predict that, talking about 90% hat and no cattle or whatever, J.D. Vance to me is all hat and no cattle. He won't. I could be wrong. I would love to be. Well, I hope it never comes to that, but I don't see. I don't see any way that Putin does not come out ahead in any agreement, or at the least, he's in the same position. It's the same position. He's taking the same position as the Palestinians, whatever, are taking in um, regarding Israel in Judea and Samaria, and guys say we want our own state and whatever. There have been a series of negotiations on this with multiple presidents. The most recent one, Bill Clinton, right? And it's never fallen apart. These agreements or negotiations over borders. That's maybe a conventional wisdom. They fall apart because, well, at Camp David, the one with Arafat and Ehud Barak, and then you had Bill Clinton there. And what happened was everything, 99% was agreed. Wherever the borders, everything was agreed, but there was one clause, one paragraph at the end of this agreement say this settles all matters between Israel and the Palestinians. And Arafat would not sign it. He was being urged by the other people with him, saying it's almost everything we want, sign it. He would not sign it because he did not want to sign anything that recognizes a permanent border and the permanent existence of a Jewish state. He just would not do it. And that's the same thing I'm seeing in Ukraine, that I do not believe, I would love to be proven wrong, that I do not see, given the present circumstances and the present philosophy of President make a deal, that Putin will not agree to anything that would foreclose the possibility of taking all of Ukraine in the future. That will be the main sticking point. So as I said in that previous video, the Reagan doctrine was the right one. I mean, I listed all the countries. There were dozens of countries that Russia was in the Soviet Union, USSR. They were in dozens of countries, plus there were the Warsaw Pact countries. And Trump, the same thing, because we had détente, we had all these strategies or policies with dealing with the then extant Soviet Union. And when Reagan came into office in 1981, he was his foreign policy advisor sat down with him and said, okay, now let's have a discussion. We have to go through these details. What's our policy going to be vis-a-vis the Soviet Union? And Reagan, as I said in the 4 words: we win, they lose. That was his philosophy. And he didn't wait. He didn't threaten. I mean, this idea is that Putin is willing to talk, or say he's willing to talk. He'll drag those even if he meets with Zelensky, he'll drag it out as long as he can. Maybe he'll throw out a little fig leaf or something to give hope to continue the talking and prevent us and our allies from imposing the sanctions, the economic sanctions that we could impose if we were a little strong, more if we had Reagan's moral sense. I mean, that drives me crazy about Trump too. He never, sometimes from a prepared speech will do something. He never really speaks from a standpoint of morality, of what's right or wrong, that some wars are justified and you don't reward aggressors like Vladimir Putin. But it's all, well, they're talking, I think they want a deal. I think Putin is tired of fighting and Zelensky is tired of fighting. We have to, all this, just, it's like he's a real estate guy. He's a builder. He's a landlord, and that's the terms. That's how he thinks about everything. Apparently, well, can we make a deal? And where's this side? Where's that side? And no, we win, they lose. It's just not in his. It's not in his lexicon. We win, they lose, and that is the strategy that he should be pursuing, not holding out or that Putin is willing to talk to avoid these sanctions that we could put on or that we're threatening. meanwhile, he continues the war and tries to get more and more land while these talks are going on, and the sanctions are held in abeyance. So those sanctions being just saying, well, it's not technically a sanction, but driving down the price of oil to $40 a barrel or even below, that bankrupts Russia. I think at least a third of their economy is based on, and maybe more, is based on the sale of oil. As John McCain said, Russia, it's a gas station. It's a nuclear-armed gas station. That's what it is. They have nothing to offer the world except, I mean, go to your local Walmart or whatever and look at the labels on anything in the store and see how much stuff is made in Russia. Lots of stuff made in China. How much stuff is made in Russia? And you're not going to find very much. That's my prediction. But go to Walmart, prove me wrong. You know, you can prove me wrong. But and I'll admit it if I'm wrong. But that's one sanction, drive down the price of oil. And the other one is to expel the Russian banks from the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system is a system by which countries' banks do international business. You take Russia out of that, they basically cannot do business with the rest of the world. Their banks cannot do transactions with the rest of the world. That's what it boils down to. And third, there are 350, a little bit over that, $1 billion of financial assets that are sitting in Europe. Europe is using the interest from those assets that those assets are earning to pay for arming the Ukrainians. But what they could do is seize the whole 350 billion, and then that's 350 billion that Europe does not have to spend, number one, or us. And number two, it's Russia is paying for the war essentially on both sides. So those are three things they could do. And if Reagan basically did something simple. He bankrupted the Soviet Union, and he didn't wait. He didn't threaten it. He just did it. He did it. And another thing he did, a clever thing he did, they were very smart about this. Russia, as I said, depends on oil, and Russia was stealing, just as China does today, stealing our technology, our oil refining and extraction technology. I forget which part of the process it was, but what we did was we created some plans, the blueprints for whatever the facility was. And I think it was for the pipelines, actually, for controlling the pipelines. That's what it was, I'm pretty sure. And what happened was we created some fake plans that were very realistic, but had a single flaw in the plans. Russia followed the blueprint and built according to the specifications. And the oil terminal or whatever it is, as soon as they turned it on, it blew up. That's the kind of stuff that Reagan did. And that's what Trump, that he should do. He has three financial levers he should do, and he should do them immediately. He should have done that before talking to Putin. Do that, crush the Russian economy, and wait for the phone to ring from Putin, and then tell Putin how high he has to jump, and if he won't jump that high, then just say thank you very much, have a nice day, and continue the sanctions and bring down. That's what Reagan did. He said, we win, they lose. He didn't say Russia. He didn't talking about everybody, these people, these talking heads, well, Ukraine can't win. That never even entered into Reagan's mind. Well, Ukraine can't win. Azerbaijan can't win. Romania can't win. Well, they were in the Warsaw Pact. But you get my Lithuania can't win. He didn't do that. He said, we win, they lose. And he went after the head of the snake, which was the Soviet Union. He brought it down and he freed all those countries without firing a single shot. That's what a real president would do. And unfortunately, given the alternative, I am a conservative, and given the alternative, I voted for Trump. If he were able to run for, if I can troll my Democratic friends, because they talk about, Reagan, Trump is, a fascist. He's going to run for a third term. He's not going to. But if he could, and the alternative were any Democrat president, I would vote for him again. I do not regret my vote for Trump at all. But I don't consider him a really strong or good president. I mean, well, let me take that back. He's been a good president economically, reducing regulations. In some way, he's been a good president, but not a great president. And actually, he touts these. I solved, I resolved 7 wars, and I forget which country it is, but one country is already one side of one of these wars that Trump ended is accusing the other side of violating the peace. So we'll see where that goes. But I've talked enough. That's it for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where do you think this is going? Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Trump is taking the wrong course, or tell me he's taking exactly the right course. Whatever. I'd love to hear from you. But whether I hear from you or not, I would really love for you to subscribe, share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I'd love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.